Hello, this is George. That is my name. New Golden Age of Terra channel. And my friend Uncle Salty is joining me. So, how lovely is that? We're going to have a panel discussion. Let me admit him here to the room. Looks like it'll take a moment to connect. And there he is. Hello, Salty. How are you doing? Can you hear me? I cannot hear you, bro. So while you're working that out, I'll let our friend here in. Salty, I see you're connected to audio. Hello, hello.
Hello, George.
Yeah. And who's that? Is that AJ there?
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. How are you doing?
I am well. How are you today?
I'm going to have to sneeze. But other than that, we'll see when it'll happen when it happens. You know how the body works.
Yes, doing doing just what
Achoo!
it.
Excuse
There
me.
you go.
Yeah.
Gesundheit.
Thanks. Well, I see we have Salty here with us from down under. Good morning.
Salty.
Seems like he might have an audio issue. If he wants to just listen, that's okay. Oh boy, trying to avoid another. Uh, I know people are not tuning into YouTube to hear me sneeze, so I'll pinch the old nostrils and see if I can make it go away. So we're here for our first professionally produced, I'm laughing, panel discussion.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Thank you. And uh, very commendable to bring us together like this.
well, sure. I mean, so you might wonder, and some of the people out there in YouTube land might wonder, um, well, what's the point of this exercise, you know? And I was thinking, in this space that I'm presuming to try to occupy a little portion of, you've got basically three or four tiers, let's say three tiers of people. So tier one is contactees, I think, that's yeah, there are so many kinds of people, and there are two kinds of
Yes.
people, those who divide people into two types and those who don't. It's a bit of a joke, but anyway, I think the people who have direct experience on a large scale, and I'm not, so I mean not just somebody who saw something anomalous flying in the sky, but people who have met the pilots, so to speak, or they
Right.
claim they have, right?
Right.
And then you have second tier people who may have had a few paranormal experiences, but they don't tend to talk about them very much because, at least in their own minds, they weren't all that remarkable. But they're interested in the subject, and they are the people like Dr. Michael Salla and others on social media, let's say, or independent journalists who compile information and who interview the first tier people. And then I think or if I can speak for all three of us and any others that may join us, we're probably third tier in the sense that we're interested in the subject. We haven't yet made our mark, and not all of us want to the extent that we can attract contactees or people who were in the secret space programs or even high profile remote viewers to interview about these matters. And I would like to get there, honestly. I hope I will. Um, but I think there's a place for us
Yes.
because why? I mean, why would you say, AJ, what do you think? Is the reason why there's a place for us to have a discussion and post it on social media?
Well, between all of us, be it 2, 3, 4, or 100 people, between a number of people, if we can share information, pull it together, look at it very carefully with intellectual rigor, this can be helpful in sorting out fact from fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very important task in itself between third tier people, is just trying to sort out fact from fiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We don't want to be filling our attention with fictitious ideas which are cloaked in the guise of being factual.
Yeah. And
And
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
when I think of this broader subject, that is the realm outside of the immediate Earth, which would be our solar system, and then on to the galaxy. When I think of the period that I grew up in, roughly 1960 to 1980, there were a number of programs that presented this information. In fact, all the programs that I saw as a kid, like My Favorite Martian. Don't know if you ever saw that, but
Yeah, I liked
that was the first program that as a kid I saw. And it was all implied that this was fictional.
Sure.
And this character, too, in the Bugs Bunny cartoon, you might remember him.
Mm-hmm.
He was this little short fellow with a helmet on.
Yeah.
And he was from Mars. And he spoke in this somewhat robotic voice that was all understood to be fiction. And then, of course, later in the 70s, we had the original Star Wars trilogy, all understood to be fiction. Yet right in the center of those 2 decades, 1969, was when NASA asserted that they went to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a, quote, factual event. So, and I'll never forget looking up as a second grader that very night at the moon and thinking to myself, wow, there are men right now in flimsy little machines on the surface of the moon.
Yeah.
But so to me, that was a point where I started actually believing, okay, well, that's factual. And obviously, these programs that I've seen are fiction. And something changed for me towards the end of that period. I want to say 1981. I was reading this book, Black Elk Speaks. And in that book, before Black Elk begins to tell his biographer his story, he gives an invocation to the Great Spirit, to the powers of the earth, and also to the Star Nation people.
Mhm.
And when I read that, it completely changed my perspective on this fictional implications. My favorite Martian, the little character in Bugs Bunny, Lost in Space, that was another fictional program. It completely changed my view. I thought to myself, here's this Native American. He has nothing to do with Western culture. He comes from over 100 years ago, and yet he speaks of the Star Nation peoples. So for me, that was the beginning of my realization. Wait a minute. There's something to this.
Yeah. Right.
Despite what we've been led to believe. And of course, later, the whole NASA assertion about 1969 and them going to the moon and the whole Apollo missions. Just a couple of weeks ago, I saw a NASA spokesman, and he was asked, well, why don't we go to the moon anymore? And his reply was, oh, well, we don't have that technology anymore.
Yes. Yeah, and they've said that it would take 15 years to redevelop it. That was
Which makes
NASA's
no
story.
sense to me.
Yeah.
And also, I know that a number of other nations have been to the moon, or they've claimed to have gone to the moon in the last 5 years. India, one of the European nations. So,
Unmanned vehicles, though.
mhm.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's a lot of muddying the waters that have gone on culturally that we were brought up in, and your recent sharing of information on contactees has reawakened this topic. And I think the whole world's mind is on it with this whole recent drone event that peaked out and is still going on. Of course, California fires, a number of UFOs were spotted in footage that some of the legacy media had on their programs. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting time, and I think this is a perfect time for those of us compelled to do so to get together, share what we know, look at it. It's helpful to have a number of eyes and minds looking on it, because sometimes someone else sees something that oneself doesn't see in the data, or maybe they've had direct experiences. This helps us figure out where to put our energy, time, and hopefully it becomes something that benefits us, the time that we spend examining this and preparing us for possible future events that may unfold, and then we're prepared for those events rather than being unprepared. So that's why I'm here, George. And once again, perfect timing in my opinion. And excellent that you have scheduled today.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I don't mean to cut you off by butting in and saying thank you, but you also did seem to be coming to a pause or a conclusion of what
Yes,
you were saying. Okay.
yes.
So I wanted to be sure that I wasn't interrupting you. Salty, would you like to say a few words to this subject? I mean, you're here, just the fact that you're here to listen in, I appreciate that. And if you don't want to speak, that's okay. If you do, that's more than okay. I would, definitely appreciate it. And if you don't pipe in or pipe, if I don't hear sounds, I'll say, okay, he probably doesn't want to talk. And that's okay.
Do
Um,
we have Salty's audio hooked up? Can you confirm that?
well, I really can't completely confirm it. Now, when he joined, there was a message that he was connecting to audio and that went away. So I think
Right.
he's probably connected, but it's fine. Um, I remember the first time I tried to make a video, I did it for a friend in England, and it was just specifically a message, personal message to her. And I think I posted it on YouTube as an unlisted video and sent her a link to it. This was in 2016 or something like that, right? Or
Yeah.
2015. And I had to record it 16 times, literally, even though it was only a couple of minutes, because I was very nervous, right? And I
Yeah.
felt that everything I said and all my gestures were weird or wrong or something. So there is that factor if you're not used to this kind of venue. It's
Yeah.
just as the old public speaking, uh, yeah, phobia. But one
They,
gets over it. I
yeah,
think,
that's one of the top five fears, as I understand it, is public speaking.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, addressing what you said, AJ, I completely agree with you, and um, I think you actually identified the two biggest issues. One is it's a space in which people who come forward with a story, they could be doing it for any one of a number of reasons. And I got hooked into Ashiana Dean's UFO cult some years ago for 4 years actually, and eventually I decided she was, running a program for her own benefit because
Right.
she would have workshops and you could go for $400, and spend a few, 2 or 3 days listening to her expound. And she always had something new to tell. And there was a lot of fear porn in it, and her overall paradigm was extremely complex. So my feeling about it was that I had enough intelligence to sort of see the way things were going and flowing and what the conclusions were, but the details you would have to have an IQ of 500 to get all of that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was all just I don't know. I mean, she could have been and probably was in contact with some sort of entities, but at the end of the whole thing, what separated me from her was um, I had accumulated a list of things that she said over time that did not resonate and seemed really off and bizarre and unscientific. I'll give you an example, just one or a number, but she had a story about some star nation, if you want to call it that, which was associated with the Centauri constellation. Now, this kind of association with a constellation is still going on, and it seems kind of weird to me because a constellation is a little section of the sky that as we view things from Earth. And it's 32 billion light years deep and, a few light years wide. I mean, a few hundred or thousand maybe. If you're talking about what's in our galaxy anyway. So if you say, the Orion Wars or the Lyran Wars or, some federation or alleged, star nation that's associated with a constellation, I don't really understand that. It doesn't necessarily completely disqualify something, but anyway, Ashiana's story was that these people really were centaurs, and they had a government that was centered in Alpha Centauri and Omega Centauri. So it was the Alpha and the Omega, which makes for a good story. But then you
Yeah.
go and look up what Omega Centauri is. It isn't a star. It's a globular star cluster of 100 million stars.
Oh,
So that to me was very strange. I mean, how could you
yeah.
say, Alpha Centauri, which is a triple star system actually. So you have Alpha, Beta, and Proxima Centauri stars, but at least it's a star system. And on the other hand, Omega Centauri is 100 million stars. And where exactly in that is the center of government? And if 100 million stars is just one end of this supposed region of space, how many hundreds of millions of stars are included in it altogether? You know, and how many light years does it span? I mean, these are questions that call the whole concept into question in my eyes. And and there were a number of those. And finally it reached a critical mass, and I said, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And she said in some of her okay, I got an email from Salty, said he can't get his mic to work. Okay, well, maybe next time, my friend.
Yeah. Maybe next time, Salty. That would
Yeah.
be awesome to have another. Whomever wants to join, I can understand tech issues.
Yeah. So I did hear Elena, our dear Elena, my dear Elena, anyway. I don't know, you
Yes.
guys may not have quite the same regard for her that I do, but anyway, she did say in one interview I heard that Ashiana's story is disinfo or misinfo, right?
Hmm.
So, and I'm not surprised. And I'm not here to talk about it, okay?
Right.
I know a lot about it because I spent 4 years studying it, and so I could regale you with all the bizarre stuff, but why bother? I don't believe in it
Right.
anymore. Um, so
So,
let's
in
go ahead.
contrast, now speak about the various things you've learned by way of Elena
Yeah.
that are coherent, unlike Anna's various incoherencies. If you can contrast your more recent
Yeah.
research with Elena, that could be really helpful.
Well, yeah. So again, I really prefer to do that more by focusing on Elena in a positive way.
Yeah,
And so I've made some videos in this channel concerning why I grant her um, credibility, and it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. There are certain people out there that I think are they have some valuable intel, but there's some things that they're saying that may be distorted. But in her case, I really haven't found any distortions. I will say there are a few things I don't fully understand, probably more than I realize, because I'm
yeah.
constantly discovering more nuances to her messaging. Let's see. I wrote, and see, looking in this sent category here. Okay. So someone just emailed me some questions, and I actually addressed this in my answers. Elena. All right. So we're talking about Elena now. I pointed out some things here, just like what category she's in. Well, definitely in the category of people who don't introduce you to an ET by channeling. An example would be Bashar, I guess, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and so I don't think that Darryl Anka has ever met Bashar in person, but he channels Bashar. Okay. So
Right.
um, that's one kind of contact. And then, of course, there are people who say they were abducted and subjected to experiments and things like that, and may have had a little conversation with the abductors, but it wasn't a truly informative and sort of a meeting of equals, you know.
Right.
Um, but Elena, so her story goes like this. Now, she, as a child, was abducted by Greys, and they had some set of agendas with her. Now, she has um, good, let's say, unusual DNA. Okay, and I won't go into the whole thing, but the Greys evidently had more of an interest in some people than others because you could live to be 100 years old and never be abducted, or you could be abducted when you were 5 years old. I mean, so
Yeah.
why did they pick one person and not another?
Yes.
But part of their agenda was a hybridization program, and that seems to be well established. Um, anyway, they didn't get to messing with her in terms of very much of a medical nature or a reproductive nature, but they installed or implanted a device in her brain, which was intended to be a tracking device. And I have known of people in my life, and I say that not that I've known anybody personally, but I had a girlfriend whose best friend was a serial abductee, uh, and that came about because that woman had married a man who had been abducted since he was a child, and once they became involved, she started to be abducted too.
Uh,
And they both had multiple implants in their bodies, and they knew it.
right.
So anyway, so that's another thing that they do or did was implant people.
Implants.
Yeah. And so this was, according to Elena, this device they put in her was intended to be a tracking device. And before they moved on to other things, she was rescued by uh, humans, Pleiadians, right, from the Galactic Federation of Worlds, one of whom was Thorhan Eridion. And there's a backstory about Elena and Thorhan having known each other through multiple incarnations, and they agreed to incarnate on Earth, or well, in her case, on Earth, and in his case, I guess Era is his base of operations, so to speak. So he actually there's something about him coming back in time 350 years, and I think she did as well, to be here now, as it were, right?
Yeah.
And participate in what's going on at this time. But anyway, that was their first meeting in this life, in these contemporary incarnations. So and she's been in contact with Thorhan ever since. The reason they converted the implant to a communication device appears to have been that they wanted to remove the implant, but they said it would probably cause brain damage if they did, so they elected just to repurpose it. So it became a secure communication device, and she has been in touch with
Hello.
Thorhan and others for quite a long time. The other main person, I think, I mean, she has many contacts, or she has had many contacts over time, but the other one to whom she was particularly close was Anax the Eggaroth, and the Eggaroths are not human, but they're humanoid, quite human looking and very benevolent looking, beautiful beings. Um, but Anyway, she was asked to become the emissary to the people of Earth. Um, yeah, so we're going to be ending in 10 minutes here. We can reconvene, okay, after um, Zoom cuts us off. I'll just start up another meeting and we can return if you want to
Sure.
for a part two. And we'll probably exhaust ourselves in the second 45 minutes, and that will be it. But
Okay.
just wanted to give us that opportunity to continue.
Right.
Um, so
Check one, two.
hey, there he is.
Hey, I'm on. Hey,
Yeah.
mate.
Hey.
Hey, going,
Well,
George. Hey, AJ.
yeah. Hi, Salty. We hear you,
I'm,
man.
I'm getting an echo, actually.
Oh, well, we
Okay,
don't hear it.
okay. I'm listening anyway. I'm just going mad here.
Yeah. Okay.
Never done this before, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm used
Well,
to hanging with
uh,
snakes, so not computers.
yeah. So yeah, let me I
Can you see
guess.
me? I've got a camera on too.
Oh, well, if you want to show your face, you're welcome to.
I've got
More
a
than
cam
welcome.
on, but I don't know.
So there's my face.
I can see
I sh
your good-looking face.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I should have been showing myself because, it's going to be posted on YouTube as a video. So people like to see my face, or they don't. But anyway, well, I've got, this picture of the Earth behind me. At least, if they want to, they can
That
focus on
looks
that.
pretty good.
Look at all that light, all those cities. Um,
Yeah.
so, so yeah. So Elena agreed to do this. Now, what kind of person is Elena? Well, she was a professional archaeologist and Egyptologist, and she had a druid grove. She's a certified druid. She's a hereditary shaman and an initiate into Egyptian magic. Besides that, she's a very excellent artist and an accomplished writer. She wrote papers, as an archaeologist, and she wasn't just a run-of-the-mill, I don't know, laborer in the archaeological trenches. She actually had a responsible position
Yes.
working for the French government in Egypt. So, so anyway, she gave up all that and became an emissary, which she has an article on her website about what that's all about. Like, well, stepping into the public arena and having a lot of people love you and give you adulation on the one hand, but then also other people are out to discredit you and destroy you and intimidate you and threaten your life and literally try to kill you and things like that. So it's
Right.
it's not a party. Um, so anyway, there are many reasons why I give her a very high level of credibility. Of course, she's imperfect and she can be mistaken, as we all can. And
George, can you cite, speaking of the various reasons that you give her credibility, what comes when you say that to the forefront of my mind
yeah,
is this information that she has provided on multiple occasions,
hmm.
which then later gets confirmed a number of months later by the current scientific community. Can you provide some of those data sets?
Well, yeah, and let me see if I can pull this website up. So Dan Willis has been very kind to have produced. Ah, why is it doing this? A page. And actually, if you go to elenadannon.org, it's is a link to it on her homepage, and then you can link right over to Dan's site. And so I've talked about this in other videos. So I'll post the link again, okay, in the description for this video. But let's just focus maybe on one example
Okay.
for this situation. And I think Well, there are a couple that are very similar. There was one when, so the people on Mars, and there are multiple races living there, but under Galactic Federation leadership, they have begun a terraforming project. Well, they call it terraforming or star making, and neither one of those really describes what they're doing. But they intend to bring Mars back to its fertile green, Earth-like status that it once enjoyed a million years ago or so.
Yes.
So the beginnings of that operation caused a tremendous earthquake. And Thorhan's younger brother, Jenhan, who was training to be involved in that kind of activity, had been transferred to Mars and was involved in it. So the intel was given to Elena that there's been a massive earthquake on Mars, and it was known that NASA had seismic detectors on Mars and they would be detecting it. So anyway, Elena scooped them. She gave out the information. There's been a big earthquake on Mars associated with the so-called terraforming operation. And
Yeah.
sometime after that, NASA came out and said, hey, our seismic detectors on Mars detected a huge earthquake, and we didn't think Mars had any tectonic activity, and we don't understand what could have caused that. So that's one example.
Yeah.
There are many different kinds of evidence. There have been other people who have been with Elena on board the Galactic Federation flagship, and have had other experiences with her. Jean-Charles Moyen visited a space ark, which is a very large ancient spaceship that's buried somewhere. You know, there are multiple ones on Earth and some on other planets in the solar system, but Jean-Charles and Elena with Thor-Han, so all three of them, two humans, two Earth humans, and Pleiadian, went to visit the space ark that is located at Lake Vostok under 2 miles of ice in Antarctica.
Right.
Yeah, so there's that kind of corroboration, and there's just a big variety. The text of the Prime Directive was given to Elena um, by the Federation, and a comparison was made of that contemporary text to text that Gene Roddenberry had published in a very little known book a long time ago. And they cover the text is a little different, but they cover the same points. Elena had no idea that the Gene Roddenberry's book existed, by the way.
Oh.
You know, which of course that's just a claim, but very few people ever really knew that it existed, apparently. So there you go.
Gene Roddenberry of Star Trek fame. That was, of course, another program as I was growing up that was a well-loved program. Presented, of course, it was implied that this is fictional.
Indeed. And it is.
But
yeah, but it was intended as soft disclosure. It was to get people used to all this sort of subject matter. And there have been many narratives in Star Trek that actually tracked and mirrored things that were going on in the real galaxy.
Right.
So we now have less than a minute. Let's say bye-bye for now and come back for part two. And if you want to go take a break for, let's say in 5 minutes, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. See you in
Okay,
5 minutes.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
5 minutes.
Bye for
Bye
now.
now.
Yeah. I'm addressing the YouTube audience in the absence of my friends, and just inviting you to like and subscribe, comment, and join us for part two, which is another video, which I'll post after this one. So I'm not sure right now what the title will be, but this has been part one of our first panel discussion on this channel. Hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, it is continued in a part 2. So we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.